Hello everyone, Krydax here. Welcome to our mod settings and map settings micro episode for our AngelBobsOmni playthrough. So I just wanted to walk you through kind of what my map settings are so that if you are interested in doing a similar playthrough or even just having a starting point, you can see what I'm doing. So first off, we've got frequency at 75%, size at 133, and richness at 150 for Omnite. And that's the only resource, so that's not very complicated. Because it's the only ore that you ever need, the frequency doesn't need to be super high, because really you just need one patch here and there. That is not the difficulty of this mod pack, to be sure. For terrain, I like to turn off cliffs, personally. I turn the water coverage down a little bit, but the scale up a little bit, which means you're not going to have land broken up by water as often, but when it is, you'll have decently large lakes. And then trees, I believe I just left at default. I turned the bias up a little bit on moisture because I like grass more than desert, but other than that, nothing too crazy. I am planning on playing with enemies, so I turned frequency down to 50%, size I left at 100. And then this Angel's enemy multiplier, I don't fully understand it. That's a new setting since the last time I played. I have that set to be at, 300%. And it says size of 100% disables biters completely. So somewhere between 100 and 600% gives you a different setting. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is or why this setting even exists. Doing some Googling didn't seem to yield any super clear results. Starting area size, I've bumped up to 200% just to give myself some more space, some more breathing room. I have disabled enemy expansion. I think I'm going to have a bad time if I play with expansion. I could be wrong. And then for evolution, I turned off time factor. I reduced the destroy factor to 100 and the pollution factor to 5 because I'm going to be making a lot of pollution. And I really don't want to overdo biters because if they're not overdone, I won't have to remove them like I did with my space exploration playthrough. And then finally, in advanced, I think the only thing I changed is research queue availability. Oh, and pollution. I changed the absorption modifier to 200% so that more pollution is absorbed by trees and tiles. And I left everything else the same. So that's it for the settings of the map. Here's the seed that I'm playing with. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And then I'll show you the mods that I'm using. I also will upload the map exchange string in the comment section of both this video and episode 1. So we'll go ahead and skip the cutscene here. It's telling me that since I'm playing without Angel's Exploration mod, which is in beta, the default map settings are balanced to improve your experience. The tweak settings are listed below. So I think it's basically just telling me what I did. So let me walk you through the mods real quick. So I'm going to save. You can see my old playthroughs there. We're going to save it as AngelBobsOmni A. And then the easiest way to see mods is just go to load a save. So I'll walk you through the mods one by one. Since this is a separate micro episode, I'm not going to skip any of them. And because I assume if you're here, you want to hear about the mods. So aircraft is all about, well, just what it sounds like, aircraft. They're basically vehicles that move super quickly, allow you to get around the map quickly, and eventually you can load in some cool equipment and really lay the hurt on the biters. Bottleneck, I've played with that one before. That just helps me see whether buildings are running or not at a glance. Copy-paste modules and module inserter both allow me to have more control over inserting modules into buildings in an automated fashion. FARL stands for fully automated rail layer, and that will help me build rail networks eventually. FNEI, Factorio not enough items, lets me find out what items are used for. Fill for me is one that automatically puts items into things like burners and turrets. LTN Combinator is really handy for Logistics Train Network, which is the next mod. Between the two of them, you can pretty easily create a logistics train network. Max rate calculator, I've used that one before as well. That allows you to easily see the amount of items going in and out of a building to make sure you're doing things right. I've already talked about module inserter. Nanobots are a quality of life mod that are kind of like little miniature construction robots that use up ammunition. I find nanobots to be indispensable, and I struggle to play without them. The picker mods put together allow you to do some cool little pipette grabbing of buildings and being able to craft a building that you're like trying to place, but you're only holding the blueprint without having to go into your inventory. So I do really like the picker mods. Run speed toggle I may or may not use, but eventually if you have a million exoskeletons, you can actually click a button to slow yourself down a little bit when you want to, and that can be handy. Squeak through, most of you know what that does. That allows you to fit in between buildings and pipes. To-do list just allows me to help keep a to-do list for myself. Vehicle snap allows you to drive or fly only in a certain number of cardinal directions. I think it defaults to 16. That way it's easier to fly or drive straight up, down, left, and right. Water well is to allow for pumping water anywhere, which is very handy. Additional paste settings is nice to be able to copy and paste into a logistics chest without doing full stacks. It allows you to say like, oh, I only want 5 craftings worth of items to be pasted into the chest. And then there's all the Angels mods. I believe I'm running all the standard ones except for exploration, which is in beta. And then storage adds like silos and warehouses and stuff. And then obviously the Factorio mod, blueprint, flip, and turn. I may or may not need that. I need to try the new Factorio hotkeys for that. And then I'm running all of the Bob's mods. So I'm pretty sure I'm not missing any. And then even distribution allows you to pretty easily distribute items among many buildings. Lib. Flib, Factorio library. I was like, what is that? I don't know exactly what that does, but I think it's required for one of my mods. Helm mod, as many of you know, is helpful to plan factories. Inserter throughput is awesome, and it measures how quickly inserters move items, which is especially handy with Bob's adjustable inserters because there's so many different configurations of inserters that you never really know how many items they can move, and this will tell you. And then we have most of the Omni mods. Omni library, Omni matter compression, crystal, energy, water, and wood. I am missing Omni permute because I don't find that to be a super compelling mod. It adds different recipes for every possible configuration of liquid inputs and outputs, which can help you make better and more condensed factories, but it adds a lot of recipes, which I think just clutters up the game. And I could be wrong. Maybe it does it somehow differently than adding recipes, but as far as I know, it kind of adds more clutter and isn't going to help make your game less cluttered, except for the actual designs that you make. And then I also skipped on Omni Science, which changes research costs to be absolutely insane, and you basically have to do a marathon megabase to get through Omni Science. So I'm just leaving most of the normal research costs on. And then we've got quality of life research, which I've used in my previous mods. I really like it. It allows you to upgrade your move speed and your reach and your inventory size and stuff like that. I find it to be more compelling than just getting a mod that gives you long reach and huge amounts of inventory. That way you kind of get to earn it, but it still gives you those things in the long run. And then there's these Reskins mods for Angels, Bob's, compatibility, and library, which make the buildings look really nice. Consistent color theming between different tiers of building. So, you know, you're like at the red tier and then you can upgrade to blue tier once you get certain technologies, stuff like that. I've got RSO, Resource Spawner Overhaul. It's not going to make a huge difference since this is just Omni matter scattered around the map. Standard library and Underground Pipe Pack. I believe this is actually called Advanced Fluid Handling. I guess that's just the mod title in the game files is Underground Pipe Pack. But I think it's called Advanced Fluid Handling. And that one I'm really excited to use. One of my viewers commented about it in my Panadons playthrough, and I didn't want to add it mid-playthrough, but I've added it for this playthrough, and what it does is it allows you to have undergrounds that are entering. I probably don't even have it unlocked yet at this point. Oh, I do. Okay. So, how do I guess I can... I don't actually know. What is it called, if not underground pipe? Oh, here we go. Pipe to ground is what they're called. So anyway, I can have a pipe to ground here that actually ends up dumping out liquid over here. So the direction that it's going in and out of the pipe doesn't have to match the direction it's going underground. And there's a couple other things it can do as well, like variable valves for top up and overflow. So I'm very excited about that. That'll help me with all the fluids for sure. And finally, the last thing I need to get to is mod settings, because for this set of mods in particular, there are lots of mod settings that people play differently. And so you may or may not like the settings I have. Feel free to choose your own, but these are the settings that I have. I'm going to scroll through most of them without actually just talking about them, just so you can see them, because most of these are default. I haven't changed a whole lot. Most of the Angel stuff is just default. I did click hide voiding recipes, because I don't think that'll disable them, so I can still void them. There's a bunch of reskin settings. Most of my Bob settings are turned on. And the logistics, we do have the transport belt overhaul turned on. I believe all of that is default. Either that or I changed it long ago and the settings have remained saved. Inserter overhaul, pipe distance overhaul, roboport overhaul. And then, I'm curious if that underground distance stuff will interact well with the advanced fluid handling mod or not. But all of that's turned on. The real crazy settings are in the modules, because these are very configurable, and I have changed these. I've turned off God modules and the pure modules, because those feel super broken. And I've even nerfed some things. I don't know exactly what the defaults are for all of these, but the biggest change I've made is the productivity. It's only 2% per tier with a 4% start, which means the first productivity module is 6%, then it goes 8, 10, 12, etc., all the way up to 20% productivity with the best module. I believe the default ends up giving you 40% on the tier 8 productivity module. So that's just insane. It's already strong enough. Even just with vanilla Factorio giving you, I think, is it 10%? It's been so long since I've played vanilla. So I definitely didn't want that to get quite as out of hand as it normally does. And I also increased the consumption penalty. So that means each successive tier of productivity or speed is going to hurt your energy costs even more. But then, so essentially, that's going to take a lot more power, is the idea there. And so because of that, I have boosted the efficiency modules to be a little bit stronger than normal. The first one starts at 50%, and then they go up 25% from there. So they end up being very strong, but there's also a huge power cost that comes associated with the productivity bonuses. Because I wanted there to be some sort of cost. They're very strong when you, especially when combined with the beacons that are tier 3, because tier 3 beacons, I think they transmit 6 or 8 modules into a huge range, and that's just very strong. So everything else, I believe, is all default. I don't think any of these were unchecked by default. Took off the burner power phase. And what else? I think that's it. Oh, and Omni compression has some settings, which I think these are all default as well. But Omni compression will allow us to, in the late game, make buildings that are 4 times stronger and then eventually 16 times stronger. And I probably don't need 5. I think I've realized that this means there's 5 different actual sizes of solar panel. Like you could make a 1x1, a 2x2, a 3x3, a 4x4, etc., which feels a bit excessive maybe. And then there are different options here for Omni Matter. Again, I don't know exactly what's default here, but this is what I have set. Most of these are in the middle. I think I might have increased this. I can't remember. That might have been 5 originally, but this allows some extra tiers at the end. And then I decreased this, the constant for tech increase by level. This is something that increases the science pack cost as you go up. And it felt a bit extreme as I was looking through the tech tree, so I reduced that down a little bit from 0.3 to 0.2. And quality of life research has all the normal stuff. I think that about does it. The map settings, those are just my own personal settings for bottleneck. I think I changed all of them to smaller, or most of them to smaller icons. There's a lot of different icons. Even distribution, all normal. Hell mods, all normal. LTN, I'll probably talk about this at some point, but I did change the finish loading to be false because I generally only have one thing being loaded at a station. And so I really don't want trains filling up completely when I've only requested 1,000 of something. And then nanobot settings are default. Quality of life research, I had those beefed up for Pyanodons, but I changed that back to default. Resource spawner overhaul, I did change this. Increase the generation region to 12 and decrease resource chance down to 0.4. And that's because, like I mentioned before, we don't need a ton of resources. We just need Omni. So I wanted that to be a little bit more sparse. And then these are just my per player settings. I don't even know if I've changed any of these. I don't think so. Oh, I guess this one, the additional paste settings, changed it to additive values. So if I keep clicking on a requester chest, it'll add more recipes in. And it is recipe amount times 5. So it'll by default add 5 recipes worth of requests into a chest. And I found that to be a pretty good amount. If they're longer recipes, I just click once. If they're shorter recipes, I can click 10 times and get 50 recipes worth. So that's pretty much it. So I think I'm going to wrap up this little mini-sode. Thanks for looking at the settings. And if you have any questions about the settings or anything that any thoughts that you have on the settings I've chosen, let me know in the comments.